Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
Okay. Let's start the interview. Uh, yeah. Tell me about the roles and responsibilities. What are the tools you worked on the DevOps side?
Actually, I have around 5 years of experience in IT
Mm-hmm.
and also almost the same in DevOps, relevant experience also.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to my responsibilities and daily activities that I involved right now. So it is like before that, let me tell you what are all the tools that I have involved in. So I have worked on tools like Kubernetes, Docker, uh, shell scripting, Jenkins, and then I've been involved in Ansible and also monitoring tools like Prometheus, Grafana. And so these are the tools that I've involved in.
Mm-hmm.
So coming to the task, so I've been involved in writing a shell script to automate manual activities, to make sure whatever the manual effort is there, and if it is repetitive, so by using the scripts we have reduced that. And also I've been part of writing a manifest files for many of the applications, um,
Mm-hmm.
like deployments or services and many more other objects that we have used to deploy onto the Kubernetes cluster. And also I've been part of many pipelines, so wherein like starting from taking the code from GitHub until the deployment onto the Kubernetes cluster. So I've been involved. So there are a lot of other stages that it's gonna come in between. So Jenkins might interact with other tools like SonarQube, Ansible, and Kubernetes, Docker, Nexus to store our images or artifact. So all these things, I'm doing it right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Great. Yeah. Uh, oh, do you have experience in any scripting and which one you're good at?
So shell scripting, I'm comfortable with shell scripting.
Okay, like Python shell. Yeah, Shell, right?
Yeah, shell.
Okay. Okay. Can you give me any few examples that you worked on? Any scenarios, kind of.
Yeah, so I've been involved in one of the migration project, wherein the projects are migrating from Maven to Gradle. So wherein like a lot of cleanup activities, and the team was making sure that like whatever there in the code base, which is proper and none of the unwanted files are sitting. So they had listed down few of the files. So if it is there, we want to delete. We want to traverse through each branch and each repository, and then we want to delete it. And the number was quite high. So if you want to do it manually, it will take a little time. So wherein for that also we used to clone it and check that particular file is there in any branch or a repository. So then delete that and raise a PR by script itself. And the other things are like, so we used to get a requirement to delete a particular dependency or a particular plugin in shell script. So, I mean, we used to do manually every time. So it is not easy when the number is high. So for that, we had written a generalized script. So by that, we used to handle it. And so with this also, so there are many other requirements. So these are the few I said. So one more which I worked on was like wherein we wanted to identify if any branch doesn't have a commits more than 2 months. We wanted to identify that, and we just want to check with application team whether that branch is really needed or not. If that is not needed, so I mean then up to their team to delete it or like to keep it. So we wanted that kind of a report that we wanted to submit to the client. So these kind of scripts I was involved with.
Okay.
And Python also very little bit we have started. And actually we are trying to convert these things to Python, so to make it, because we are using a lot of commands, a lot of pipelines to get the desired output. So it is taking a little time to improve the performance. Maybe we need to just find the alternatives in Python.
Okay. Okay. So right now you are into shell script, like
Yeah, shell scripting, yes.
and okay. Okay. And which source code management you guys are using? Like
So I mean both GitHub, Bitbucket. So I've been in the projects wherein like they were using a GitHub, and I've been in a projects wherein like they were using Bitbucket. These two I've used.
okay. What is the branching strategy you are using? Like you are following?
Yeah. So one of the project wherein like we have followed the normal the standard branching strategy. wherein we will have a master branch, out of which we will gonna create one more branch wherein like develop branch, and then from there we will cut out. So developers, whoever wants to contribute to the team, so they'll create their own feature branches, and the name should be prefixed with the feature, and they'll create their own branch and they'll work on that, and then they'll raise a PR against develop branch. And then at the end of the sprint, or like whatever the time cutoff line they've given, so they'll merge it back to the master. And then I was not a part of like release management till it. So from the master branch, maybe they'll cut out one more release branch, and then they'll push it to the production, or like it'll go dev, QA, and production. Maybe in that way they'll do it. And other ways wherein one project I was working on. So it is kind of like there is something called as chocolatey. So wherein chocolatey is to install kind of like in Mac we have like if I want to say simple example, let's say we have yum and apt-get is there in Ubuntu, right? Like that, so there is something called as Choco, for Windows to install many applications. For that also, I mean, we were writing PowerShell scripts because we don't wanted to take the publicly available exes or MSI files. So it was there in our Nexus or like our repositories. We wanted to pull that. So in that time, like there used to be a master branch, and we used to cut out the branches with the tool name, and then we used to write the script and raise a PR. So these kind of things. And so, I mean, similarly, all other things. I mean, these kind of branching strategies.
Did you use any like integration with Git hooks or kind of?
Yes. Like, because in one of the project wherein like commit based was there, like as soon as commit happens, like we wanted to trigger the pipeline. So yeah, webhooks concept I know.
Okay. Like you know, right, how to configure those things, right?
Yes. I mean, if you want to, so webhooks says basically if any event happens in GitHub,
Yes.
it has to be informed to any other. I mean, it is not only for any CA tool or a CI tool. If anything happens in Git, if you want to inform any external tool, so you'll go for webhooks and you'll create it.
Yeah, which it will call that API and it will trigger.
Yeah, it will call respective API, and then it will inform the event what has happened.
Okay. How about Jenkins Flow CI/CD? Like you are using the Jenkins pipeline script or declarative?
Yeah. So we are using declarative. So a lot of stages are there. So first, in our pipeline, what we are trying to do is, so in our pipeline from the beginning, if I want to say, so we first.
Like I was telling, like what type of script? Like it's a GUI configuration or like declarative script?
No, it's a declarative one.
Okay. Tell me how your pipeline works and how you configure those things.
Yeah. So first thing is our pipeline starts with we were constructing kind of a Docker tag first. So we will use there is a git SHA ID, right? So for every commit there will be a SHA ID. So we used to take a short SHA ID. And minus, which will be concatenated with the build number of Jenkins. And then with that, so we will just declare it as a global variable, so which is used across the stages. And the next stage would be, so definitely the clone stage wasn't there in our pipeline because we have kept our Jenkins files in our GitHub, so wherein like it will gonna take that code. So that stage wasn't written in pipeline. And the next stage was like SonarQube, wherein so through Maven we used to communicate with SonarQube, and then wherein like we will gonna check our code, static code analysis, whether it is proper or not. And also that quality git status, we used to get it in our Jenkins pipeline itself. If it is okay, then we will proceed for further steps. And if it is not okay, so then we used to stop it there. And assume like if it is okay, so then we used to do MVN package. And here also there are, many things wherein like one project needs, like for example, let's say if it is a develop branch or a master branch, so then they wanted to do a MVN deploy and push the artifact to some of them their own repositories. In some of the projects, they were moved already into Dockerization. Wherein like once the war file, when we do MVN package, so few of the project MVN clean install. So then we used to get the war file, and by using that, so they used to now, definitely there would be Docker file in the
Yeah.
repository. So by using that, they used to create a Docker image and push it to Nexus. We used to push it to Nexus, and then like Kubernetes, like we will have a Kubernetes files also in the same repository. Replace that particular image tag and then deploy it onto the Kubernetes cluster. So that is what we used to do. And also now we started using Helm charts because it is a better way wherein like we can handle multiple environments. If there is a configuration change in each environment, so we thought like Helm will be better because we can handle those kind of things very easily through Helm.
Okay.
So we're trying to integrate those things.
It's like you write the Jenkins file to push both the Docker image and the Helm chart to the repository.
Yes, yeah. Right now Helm is not involved. We are doing kind of a
Mhm.
POCs and all.
Okay.
But right now, so
Docker image
Docker
will be
images
get
are
pushed
pushed
into
to
the
Nexus.
Nexus in the CI,
Yeah,
right?
CI, yes.
Okay. Okay. It's like you, how you like you create the Docker container and you build your code and like for the memory consumption and all, right? Which method you follow in the Jenkins file? Like you're using your own Jenkins or you're just creating some container in the cloud and all?
You're talking about agent?
Yeah, yeah,
Jenkins?
yeah, yeah, correct.
Yeah, we are actually spinning up the containers. On top of that containers, we are running it because the only reason is like whatever the project we have. So everyone needs a different tool set to be installed in our nodes. So few teams they're using a combination of Gradle and the JDK 11, and few people are still with JDK 8 and a Maven. So it is really difficult to install all those things in a respective nodes or a
Yeah.
master. So if it is a single node, so that's why what we did is like, we have created images kept in a central repository. So whenever they want it, they can pick up those images and they can run it on those
So
kind of
based on
machines.
the job, the language and all, you will pick the
Yeah.
right,
So
like suppose
respective
if
team
Java
can
based,
take
okay,
that particular images, which
and
is,
have installation. The
yeah.
Node.js, you will be get the same node, the Docker image kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so in the nodes, basically we need to just have Docker to be installed.
Yeah, correct.
So, that kind of dependencies.
The Jenkins host itself, you should have a Docker
Yeah,
installed.
definitely. Docker plugin is also should be installed.
Okay, okay. Okay, you're comfortable with Jenkins file, right? So you said Docker, right? Okay, you are using, containerization for the deploying.
Yeah, right.
Your applications on completely Kubernetes, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Everything is like few still not has been containerized. We are
okay,
working on that also to containerize our applications.
okay, cool. Okay, you write Docker files. Do you have
Yeah,
experience writing the Docker files, or
right.
do developers do, or you guys do?
No, in our projects we are writing it, and if they want, definitely we need to get the information from development team,
Yeah,
like on what ports and what kind of environment it needs, like what JDK version or a Gradle version or a Maven version, and is there any dependencies like folder structure, a particular files to be present, and a particular user with certain permissions they wanted. So all those information we will get it. Also definitely the entry point command. So once the container starts, like what command has to be executed. All this we will gonna take and then we will write a Docker file.
okay, what are the best practices you do follow writing Docker file?
So there are few that we are following it in our current project too. If you want to say few, so always we need to make sure base image, whatever the base image you are using, so
Okay.
which will be in a lesser size. Maybe if you have Alpine images, you can take and you can use that. And also, whenever you using whatever the base image, so make sure that you're not using the latest tag. So better you always specify the proper tag,
Yeah.
and then we can go for multi-stage Docker files. So wherein like so in one of the situations wherein we wanted a kind of like it is a Node.js project. So wherein we wanted kind of like multi-stage, And also not only in that, one particular project, what they wanted was, so they don't want to install Maven on their local. So they want to copy the code and then run by using a Maven. And after that, whatever the war file that will going to generate, right? They need to create a Tomcat container out of it, and then they want to run the application on top of that. So in that case, multi-stage Docker file helped us. And apart from that, like in Dockerfile also, wherein rather than using multiple run commands, we can keep it in one run. So wherein like layering concept will be reduced. And also, many people might forget uh, to keep a Dockerfile in a proper directory.
Yeah.
And so always making sure that keeping a Docker file in an empty directory or keep it in directory where required files only there, because it'll gonna try to whenever you do Docker build dot, it'll try to copy the old files whatever there in Docker context. So it is better where we have a required files in our folders. From there we will run it, so that we are sending only the proper information to the Docker daemon also. So
Okay.
these are the few that right now which is coming up to me.
Okay, you said like on build Docker. I mean, right?
Uh, uh, yeah, I mean to say wherever you're running a basically Docker build command. So when you
Okay.
create an image, when you're trying to create an image, you'll do Docker build and you'll provide the path wherein Docker file is present and also Docker context, right? So I
Yeah.
mean to say, whichever directory you're there, try to keep it minimal files. And if many files are there, but if you're required to run there only, so then use Docker ignore file so that you can avoid it. That also you can do it.
Okay. Okay. Then I mean, yeah, it's like microservices you're deploying on the Kubernetes, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Like, can you tell me why it's popular? Like, you are using microservice. There is some specific reason to use, right? Like, why it's popular, and even containerization, why it's so popular now these days? Can you tell me?
Yes, so basically what used to happen is before and all there used to be a lot of monolithic code wherein like for example, let's say there is an application. So if you want to consider a simple example, so there is a cart application. Assume like a simple
Yeah.
kind of Myntra or a Flipkart. So and if you take that in a plane, you can see there is a login application and home page application and cart, and there will be a checkout and the final page also once you order it. But before it used to be like everything in a same code base, wherein monolithic. So in that cases, what used to happen is like if some issue comes in one particular service, so it used to get affected for everything, all the services. And also, for example, let's say if you want to scale up that particular setup, so you need to scale up the whole code. So that means you're scaling up all your services. But assume like only one service is getting more and more requests.
Yes.
So, but rather than doing one service up, you're making sure all the services are up and running. So, which is you don't need that. And that one, and also when you have a large code base, so for example, let's say before and all, we used to use HTML, CSS. Though I'm not that much, familiar with front end, but what I mean to say is before we used to use that. But now maybe a lot of technologies came into picture where we can leverage that, and that technology change, it will be very difficult when you go with monolithic. But when you come to microservices, you can avoid all those things. Scaling becomes very easy, deployment becomes very easy. And also if there is any issue with that particular service, it will be get affected to that only. And we can easily identify which service has an error and which service has a fault. We can take quick actions. But when it goes to monolithic, so you need to go through the service, and you need to understand the flow. So those things used to happen. And also here everything is put it into small chunks of code. And if you want to, so let's say front end has to be changed to some different technology, you can definitely do that. And there is no longer term agreements between the technologies. So that's the good thing actually.
Okay. Okay. You said like during the deployment, right? You are using the Docker image like for the deploying the application in the Kubernetes. Look,
Yeah.
how you like tag do follow the tagging strategy.
So yeah, as I said, like we are following short. commit ID. That so every like when we do a commit, we are running our job by side, right? So we'll take that commit ID and I mean there is a concept like short show ID. There is a command. So from that we will gonna take that short show ID minus the build Jenkins build number. So and then we'll
It's
push
kind
it.
of environment variable.
Yeah, we will set it up a kind of a global variable when pipeline
Okay.
starts in the beginning, and
Okay,
then
it's
we
not
will
a
use it.
Jenkins environment variable.
Yeah,
The default environment variable. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I'll give you one scenario. Assume we have a web application
Mm-hmm.
and a like pod, web application pod and a database pod to make it reliable,
Mm-hmm.
highly availability and bit secured,
Mm-hmm.
and consider these three aspects and tell me about like what are the objects and what concepts you'll use to deploy this application.
Uh,
You got the question, right?
so basically, you're telling you want me to tell. So there is a web
Web
application pod
application,
and a
yeah.
database pod,
Correct.
and so if you deploy it, your application comes up,
Yeah.
and you want me to tell
High
what are all the
availability.
objects that you're gonna use.
Yeah, and I'm specifying a little bit secured as well, like what you use for securing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, I mean, let me take first web application. So
Mm-hmm.
when you take web application, so you need to definitely it's a stateless. So we'll go with deployment, and
Yeah.
then so we'll use liveness probe, readiness probe to make sure once the application comes up, then only it is ready to accept the load. And then whenever it is got stuck, and by
Mm-hmm.
using a liveness probe, we can restart it. So those
Okay.
concepts I'll use. With this, I'll make sure as this is I mean, exposed to the users, I want to make sure more replicas will be deployed so
Mm-hmm.
that like it will handle whatever the request which is coming properly, and also depending on the traffic and if there is a number of users increase or decrease in our users. So I just wanted to make sure like whenever there is a more traffic, so it will gonna automatically create the pods. So in that case, I'll gonna use HPA, horizontal pod autoscaler.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean this is about I guess this is what I'll do it for web application. When it comes to database, many things we can take care about it. So for example, if you want to have only one replica of database, so then you can just create a cluster IP service because web application definitely wants to communicate with this particular database. So that's why I'll go with cluster IP. And if there are many pods, so in that case, what I'll do, I'll gonna create a headless service. So what it does, basically, when you have multiple replicas of database, so in that case, I'll go for that. So, I mean, by that I can maintain one master and other things as node and data consistency I can make sure. So and also stateless, I won't go for deployment. I'll go for stateless because it gives me a sticky naming convention. So that is an added advantage for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and also stateful sets when I use it, one pod after the other, like one is successful, then the next pod only will come. I'll make sure that. Also, I'll make sure all these liveness probe, readiness probes come into picture, and also volumes. I'll make sure persistent volume because even though if in Kubernetes world all the pods are little dynamic, means it can go off, it can come off at any point of time. So I want to make sure there is a data loss shouldn't be there. I'll make sure I'm gonna have a persistent volume. So this is what I'll do. And also when it comes to security, so maybe right now whatever is striking to me is like network policy. For
Okay.
using network policy, what I can do is I can get only the request from a web application to the database pod, so that I can make sure.
Okay.
And
And what about the
also,
security? Like,
sorry,
how, like, do you have used the service accounts, these things?
yeah, I know service accounts, role
Yeah.
bindings.
Okay. Okay. For the security, what will like will add the secure service account to individual application and do it, right?
I mean, I know what it is, but I've never used on these kind of
Yeah.
scenarios. So,
Okay. Like, do you know what is like worked on like what do you call it? Ingress controller, these controller types.
Yeah, I've worked on it. Yes.
Okay, what is in the ingress controller tool?
So, I mean, when we have multiple applications, for example, let's say there is a three-page applications. Like one is home page, another page is like to list the prices, another page is like to list the quantity of a particular item. So in that case, like in Kubernetes, we can create a load balancer or we can create node port types, right? So in these cases, we need to give three different URLs or three different kind of like load balancer DNS name or a load balancer's IP. So user doesn't expect that, right? You want to just visit one link, from there it should be accessible all these three pages. So in that case, we can just create a route rules, and by using this ingress and ingress controller, we can manage those things with a single link,
Okay,
and with a just path reader, path values, we can redirect requests to individual applications.
okay. Like, what type of monitoring solutions that you have? I mean, you're using in your project, or what is experience? Do you have any monitoring tools?
Prometheus and Grafana I've used.
Okay. Okay. How, like, where these host? I mean, this will be hosted.
In our case, it is hosted in Kubernetes cluster only.
Okay. Like it integrates with the cluster.
Sorry?
Like, I mean, it's like it's deployed as a daemon set, or kind of.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we say Prometheus and Grafana, so Prometheus depends on many other things like node exporter, and I mean, many, like in our case, there is one more kind of other exporter. I'm not sure about it, but one of the thing is node exporter, which will run as a daemon set, because whatever the cluster we have, multiple nodes will be there, right? So in
Okay.
each node, node exporter will run because it will get us the metrics related to the node.
Okay.
And also Prometheus is also kind of, it should be stateful because it should also never lose the data. So wherein like, so it will be running as a kind of a deployment, and we will have particular volumes attached. So that we can do. And also we are trying to convert it to operators because we can get many added advantages. So when we go with operators, and still we are looking for many scenarios, and so we are searching for many features which are available in operators, and we are trying to get it converted to that, wherein like it can, so for example, let's say when you have a Prometheus stack, and if you want to change some scrap, like scrap endpoint,
Okay.
so in whatever the setup we have, so we need to update some config maps, and then we need to restart our Prometheus. So that configuration will gonna pick up. But we don't want to do that. We just don't want to depend on restarts. So as soon as we change config maps, or like whatever it is, our Prometheus should pick up that, and it should gonna run with the new scrap URLs. So that is what we are expecting. And yeah, I mean, operator can do that. With that, we wanted many other features too. So we're
Okay.
doing little.
How the metrics and alerts you are monitoring and sending it to the dashboard?
So like, so we have, scrap URLs, right? So particular from many endpoints will be getting the data, and the
Mhm.
data is stored in Prometheus time series database.
Okay.
And then from there, we are pushing it to Grafana. So in Grafana, we will add as a data source, and then we are like getting the data and displayed in the dashboards. And also we have alert manager, which is in place with our Prometheus.
Mhm.
So it will gonna check a lot of things, number of restarts. So for example, a particular pod has been restarted 10 times in 3 minutes. So in that cases, we wanted to send an alert, because we want to know as soon as it is restarting multiple times, we need to take an action. So that we have, and also a node memory usage and a CPU utilization. So for that also we have particular things. And also, so recent requirement is like we have seen, so wherein whenever a particular pod also reaches some 80% or a 90%, so we wanted to get the alerts for that also. Not sure why it is, but they asked to do that also. So those kind of metrics we are taking, and then we are sending an alerts through Prometheus itself.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you did set up the monitoring tool on your application, like
Yeah, I was part of it. Like not only
do
one.
you know how to set up these things from the scratch?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to tell from the
Configuration.
scratch, I mean, do you want me to tell what are all the things that we have used?
Mhm. I mean, I'm just asking, like, did you set up or like
Yeah,
were
yeah,
you
I
involved
was
in
part
that?
of it. Like,
Okay,
I mean,
you know how to configure those things in the Kubernetes cluster.
yes, yes. So, I mean, this is where like service account role binding will come into
Mhm.
picture. I'm not used in perspective to the application deployment, but in this case, while we're deploying Prometheus and alert managers and Grafana, this stack, right? So we used a service account because Prometheus definitely needs a one of the service account to scrap the data because it will be continuously getting in touch with the API server. So
Yeah.
definitely it has to have some authorizations. So in that case, like we will create a service account and attach some roles and role bindings. Or depends on like if you want to attach cluster role bindings, you can create that attached to the service account. And by using that service account, I mean you can create a Prometheus deployment. So wherein it will have some authorization. So to scrap the data from Kubernetes API server, and then like also as I said, like many other aspects will come into picture. And if you want to have a volume, you can have it. That is also there. Also, multiple config maps will be created because in Prometheus we have Prometheus.yml, custom rules we can define it, alerts we can define it, alert manager configurations we can define it. So lot many config maps will be created. And as I said, like with this we need to have alert manager, and also we have node exporter. So these things will also come into picture. And also with this, once this is done, so ultimately the metrics are shown in a dashboard. For that we need a Grafana. So those things are also there. And also we are maintaining, because we wanted Grafana to be also, what has happened, Grafana is there, it is deployed as a deployment itself with a deployment object. And if somebody restarts it, so it is losing all the templates that we have created. So we want to make sure all those things should also be there. So there also we are trying to implement this volume concept, persistence volumes and all. So that's why there are a lot of issues when you go with normal deployment. So that's the reason we are going towards operators. So for all this maintaining this configurations and maintaining the charts and maintaining dashboard JSONs, it will be quite easy in operators. So that's the reason we are moving towards that.
Yeah, you said like persistence volume, right?
Yeah.
Like my question, like suppose, can we claim the same persistent volume for like two claims? Can we do it like in the same?
It depends actually what kind of thing you're using. So for example, disk in Google Cloud or like Azure files, Azure disks.
Like suppose you created one persistent volume like
Mhm,
PVC, right?
mhm.
So can we use the same claim for both different volume? Can we mount in different containers like in the deployment?
We can do that, I guess. We can use the concepts of like dynamic provisioning, and then we can make sure that it automatically creates a PVC and then we can attach it.
Mhm.
I mean, so those things are there. Static provisioning also is there, like PVC concept. Wherein like it depends like what kind of a disk you're using. So there is one to many, many to
Yeah,
many. So
this
those
is what
concept.
I was
Yeah,
expecting. It's right read once and yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can use it. Like we also
NFS, that is
yeah.
also we can use it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good. That's all from my side. Any questions?
No. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.